Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game 6 Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam with my boys Matt and Chuck. Gentlemen, welcome. It is the off season. We have made it maybe the last episode of the Game 6 Clay podcast. Just kidding. But this is the last episode for officially the 2022-23 NBA season. The Warriors obviously lose to the Los Angeles Lakers in a tough 6 game series. And going into game 6 on the last episode, we were all gung ho. We thought it was coming back Mother's Day game 7. But the Warriors left it all out there, man. They kind of did the one thing that they've done. They weren't able to do the one thing they've done this entire dynasty, and that was make some shots. And just tough shooting nights all around. Tough shooting season, or to end the stretch by some of your best players. So it is what it is. Kind of ran out of gas, but again, another just up and down season, or not another, kind of the first one of this dynasty era, just up and down, going to the 6 seed, avoiding playing, all that stuff. We'll get into all that jazz today, but before we get into everything, man, how we doing? How we feeling, Matt? I know you were probably excited a little bit just to get the sleep back from all those sleepless nights from the Dubs.
I haven't slept better in 7 months than I have the last 2 or 3 nights. Listen, I fucked this up. I knew when I called a Warriors win, in my heart of hearts, if you had asked me, gun to my head, lie detector, the truth serum, Severus Snape looking into my mind, you choose it, okay? I just know I caused this loss in some way, shape, or form. But it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. How do I feel? You know what? Jokes aside, I don't feel that bad. It was a long season. I was not joking when I was saying I felt like I wanted it to end, because it was fun. Obviously, every Steph moment is good, but Steph was not a part of every moment, unfortunately, right? So no, I'm glad it's done. I think it's time to start. This team's gonna start figuring out what's next, and I think there's some changes to be made, and I think there's some fun conversations to be had about this team. And also, we just gotta appreciate the fact that in the last 8 years, this team has not lost in the Western Conference, which is insane. Like, what a crazy run. I don't know if that'll ever happen again under a coach like that. I don't know if any coach will ever be employed as long as Steve Kerr is. So appreciate that. That's awesome. No shame losing to a AD and LeBron-led team. This is the healthiest Anthony Davis has been in a couple of years, and good for him. He looks like it. He's playing awesome. Just more so appreciative of what we've had, and looking forward to what's next than anything else. And also the sweet relief of good sleep for at least a few months is not lost on me.
Mm-hmm.
Jester?
No, exactly. I think I'm in a similar state of relief. It sucks because all these moments watching Steph, it becomes so frustrating when you see how futile that is. Like, it sucks that he has the first 50-pointer in a game 7, and it's gonna kind of end up being for naught.
It lasted all
squeezes them
weeks.
through around. And that's just the way it goes. It's just kind of a footnote, and it's unusual to be on that end of the equation of just being the footnote of the postseason. But I think we've seen all year that this was a very flawed team. They turned the ball over so much. They fouled so much while playing defense. They struggled all year to find that consistent second guy. And even though Clay was able to turn things around in the regular season, just ran out of steam at the end, couldn't make shots. We all know how that game 6 went for him. Definitely not the game 6 Clay we're used to seeing. So probably about time to go ahead and put that nickname to rest. But it sucks. And I think, we saw the Steve Kerr comments, like, this team maxed out. They went as far as they did. I think that was true on a lot of levels, because they didn't have the legs or the focus all year. There were some big rotational changes from last season, but on the whole, the whole team just felt like a different energy. There was a lack of cohesion. There was a lack of accountability. So many guys just seemed on a different page. And ultimately, that played a huge role. We saw that frustration kind of just boils over at the end. Guys lose the ability to just play off of each other consistently. We didn't see that many stretches in this Lakers series where it was, stops, getting out in transition, making threes, moving all around and cutting so easily to get their points. That just was not it. So, I think Kerr was right in just saying like this team had a lot of flaws and some that can be fixed via free agency trades, whatever they're going to end up doing. But some that just need to be fixed internally. Like this team needs to get the focus back, get right, get priorities straight.
Yeah, totally. And I'm Matt, I'm glad the way you put it, the saying you were appreciative, because that was kind of where my mind went after they lost at the end. I still had belief that they could figure it out. I think there were a lot of turning points in that game 6. But the one that sticks out is obviously the Reeves shot, the first shot he had off an offensive rebound in the second half, and then obviously Clay missed those 2 threes to cut it to 8 in the fourth. But again, it just kind of felt like you said, Chuck, they maxed out, they fell out of gas. And going into this season, I think the belief was they have what it takes to run it back. And they did lose, and obviously they're sitting at home right now as we see the Western Conference Finals kick off. But I still believe this team could have went on a run, solely based on how great Steph was, and that's what just makes this season so tough to end early. And that's what the focus has to be going forward, is you have to maximize Steph Curry. Even in game 6, nobody else was making shots. Steph was the only one in double figures, finished with 32. The next highest was like 8 or 9. I think it was Clay. So like you can't have your all-time great point guard, superstar of the generation have this much to carry from a roster. And it starts really at like you said, at the top, man. Like obviously Bob Myers is up for an extension. We see what happens there. Draymond, Clay, what the deals are going to be. Jordan Poole. There's going to be a lot of offseason talk, but for this team, like this was the post KD era. I see this is kind of the end of that. They went through the 15-50 season, the play-in, obviously went back and retooled and was able to get back to win a championship. So we know that the core can still do it. And there's 5, 6, 7 guys that you could add into that mix of who can help this team win a championship. But it did feel like this year's team, especially, like you said, man, like it was just like it was a grind the entire season. And the fact that Steph was able to will him to 10 wins of winning a championship again, and right there on the cusp of going back to the Western Conference Finals. We still have belief they could have made that 3-1 comeback. So they still have that punch. That punch is still there. But obviously this season showed that, the margin for error is a lot thinner than it was before. And, you got to maximize the roster spot. We had 5 unplayable roster spots this season. You have an older team. You have a young, core in their own right that's trying to figure it out. And, playing 2-way guys throughout the regular season, not having a set rotation coming into the playoffs, just so much up in the air. So I think that, like you said, come back, retool. But this team's not done. The dynasty is not done. They'll be back, but it was a tough reality check to finally see Steph, Clay, and Draymond, but specifically Steph, not able to. I don't want to say not deliver, because the guy delivered for us time and time again, but not be able to be enough to get the team over the hump for the first time in forever. So hell of a run, but I agree. Maxed out, and let's retool and come back, man.
I also just while on the topic of talking about the maxed out aspect, I don't agree with the maxed out idea, to be honest. Like, I think for where the players were in the offseason, possibly, but it does feel like the Warriors, and this is a pro Kerr podcast all the way around, but it does feel like this guy mismanaged the Warriors' young talent quite a bit this year when it comes to Moody, when it comes to Kuminga. I think someone's brought this up, that Lamb was kind of a Wiggins insurance policy more so than anything else. But just the fact that guy, so much was invested into Lamb playing time in games that turned out to be losses anyway. It's a tough look. And I'm not saying so. I don't think this was a championship team. I agree with Steve Kerr in that. I don't think that this team, with where the players were at this point in the offseason, I don't think they were winning a title. I think maxed out probably would have looked like a Western Conference loss to a Denver team that looks, quite frankly, just incredible right now. But I do think that there is some money left on the table with the young guys, and we're gonna get into like offseason moves going forward, and I'm sure some of us, and maybe including myself, are gonna have Kuminga deals in mind, or Moody deals, or JP and all three deals in mind. But we can look at the fact that Moody got playoff minutes after not being able to get on the court for most of the season. We can look at the fact that Kuminga was in the rotation for most of the season, and Kirk quit on him pretty early, and you can assume there are reasons for that. You can look at strategic reasons for that, but I think there were rotation players in those two guys that could have really helped the Warriors in a series against the Lakers, especially given how much the Warriors struggle with certain things that those two guys at their best probably bring to the table. And that's some strong defensive effort. That's some rebounding, especially from Moody, not so much from JK, obviously, but getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, things the Warriors just genuinely struggle with, and getting points. That's going to be one of the big points of emphasis in the offseason, or at least it should be in my mind, is just, I mean, I love Clay. I love Wiggins. Poole, he's there, but they don't have a guy who we talked about this last podcast. I'm not betting the over on a 19.5 points scored for any of those three guys in any given night. I'm just not at this point. And, at a certain point, and I'm not saying Kuminga right now is a 20-point per game scorer. I'm not saying he ever will be. That's not my point. My point is just there were certain things that could have been done differently, I think, this season that might have led to better playoff results. But I think with where they were in the playoffs, I get it. I get what Kerr was saying to a degree.
I think the maxed out thing to feel more like the two timeline plan. I know that's not going to be like what they're saying, but that's kind of been the basis of like the roster construction has been, the old guys and the young guys. And last year, obviously, they won a championship, but it wasn't really with the young guys. We had, Otto Porter, Gary Payton, stepping up, Bielitsa, JTA, all these guys that, filled in the holes on the roster that allowed you to take so many younger guys. And, you replenish that with more young talent. Guys, like you said, aren't getting in the rotation. Kerr, obviously, I agree. I think he did mismanage it a little bit, especially just with the way the season played out. But I think it was clear that, the maxed out sense was, this two timeline thing is not going to work. You have to make a decision on which one are you going to do. And are you going to stay with Steph, Clay, and Draymond and just maximize that core, maximize Steph as you can? Or look, if your decision is to pivot, then, fully commit to, let Draymond walk, Clay, we'll see what happens. But you got to commit to one. You can't do one or the other at this point, because you're going to get second round exits, where you think you have enough to get there, but you're just losing on the margin. So that's what I took maxed out to feel and mean. But again, like this core has so much left to give. So I agree with, I forget it was Draymond or Kerr, but somebody's like, this core is not done. So it's not that the way the Warriors lost the season and this series was purely on the margins, and they can totally combat that without having to change much, keeping guys like Moody, GP, obviously the core four or whatever. So there's a lot to work with on this roster for sure, and they're going to be right back up there, but it's maxed out in the sense of you can't run that two timeline plan anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I have to, but I have to agree. I also have to disagree. I just think they dipped their toes in both ponds in the worst possible way. Like, they didn't commit to the full two timeline plan. That's part of the issue. Like the front office did, right? And even I just don't even agree that I don't think that Kuminga getting minutes throughout the season more consistently, or Moody, same thing, getting minutes, would have drastically changed, if changed at all, the outcome of that happened in the regular season seeding wise.
No, I don't think it would. My point is that from like what Kerr, like how Kerr's coaching, so it's the and then you draft projects and what it is. So you have to see him develop. The kind of coach you have. You're at a point, this would be year 3 going into it. You can't. I feel like this is like, given how everything's played out, like this would be the time to either pivot or not, and which sucks because it feels like we'll get into the trades and stuff, but you're giving up a lot of value on either end of whichever you decide to go. So it was just mismanaged in general, and like you said, I don't think they did it right, just in general, but it's definitely an inflection point. This offseason is going to be the biggest one they've had since 2019, really, since KD left, in terms of how to get this team back. But they're in a way better spot than they were in 2019.
Chester, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the thing is, when you look at the young guys on this roster, the Warriors, their choice is clear. Like, you have to do everything you can to maximize this Curry, Clay, Draymond window. And I think there are two paths to that. One is moving Jordan Poole and getting a true number two, one you can trust, one you can play in the starting lineup. We will have plenty of episodes to speculate who that is later on. But the idea there is to, shore up the star talent. You have Draymond, you have Clay, who are perfect complementary players that we've seen before. You have Looney locked in, you have Gary Payton. You can figure out a rotation from there. The other avenue.
I'm sorry, I need to cut you off, Charlie. You need to mention Andrew Wiggins as well.
Yeah, no, Wiggins,
Thank you.
Even more, like, just adding to the even more sickening depth that would be if they were able to move Poole for, like, the real number two. Because, I love Wiggins, but, like, he's not the guy that they can depend on to be their number two scorer, because that just takes too much of his value away defensively. They need someone who can be reliable. And the other path is, even if they're moving Jordan Poole for, a more secondary star, and they don't go for that true number two scorer, you have to make this bench so deep, so full of veterans that Steve Kerr can trust, so he doesn't have to press the Steph pedal all the time, so they're not overly reliant on him, and they can save him, because we've seen he can still be that guy in the playoffs. And that championship team was because 1 through 10, they were just rock solid. And you had Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody on the outside, definitely not playing as much as they would have liked. But I think the general idea there was, hey, if these guys break in and take over a playoff rotation spot, that's great. But if not, we're fine. And I think what we saw this year is none of these guys, save for Moody, and, albeit Moody kind of was in a low minute role, broke into a spot for the playoff rotation. And then the other young guys you have, like Jordan Poole, are just letting you down more often than they're helping you. So that, I think, is really where the Warriors are headed, is whether it's, trading for this big number two star or lengthening out the bench. Either way, they need to cut away a lot of this young talent on the roster. And yeah, it may mean selling a little lower or earlier than they wanted to, but there's not really a choice at this point.
Yeah, it feels like we're all kind of on the same page in that, and this is not, listen, I rip on Poole a lot. I don't think Poole is bad. I think there's a genuine 25 point per game scorer as a starter on a pretty good team in Jordan Poole. I don't think this is not, and I've said, this is not me backtracking on half the Poole slander I've delivered over the past 3 or 4 months. Like, I don't think he's good for this team. I think he's, embarrassingly effortless on defense. But I think so much of this stuff can be traced back to the fact that the leader of your team punched you in the face 7 months ago. And that can make things pretty damn hard. You know what I mean? So, but I think we all agree. My point is that this guy's probably got to go elsewhere. You can't spend $28 million on a guy who you can't play with your other best players. And I think Poole at his best is one of their 4 or 5 best players. We don't know how often he is that. We don't know. We know that him next to Steph and Clay at this point in their careers probably isn't a great combo, and that makes things really hard. We know that he doesn't seem very happy in Golden State. So it just, to me, it seems very obvious that he's got to go. And that's kind of like the underlying tone of everything we're saying. Which kind of brings me to my point, right? So did you guys look back at anything that you thought was going to happen going into the season that you just feel like you were dead ass wrong about? Because I have a couple at least, but I wonder where you guys are at with those.
Well, I said this team might win 60 games on the preseason pod, but I think the biggest miss was sadly Jordan Poole. I know we all did, but I was truly convinced that this kid was going to be that true number two that we were looking for, to ease the load off Clay, ease the load off Steph. And, to Jordan's credit, like, I want to get, like, the regular season, he had career highs in, I think, points and assists, I want to say. And his 3-point percentage obviously was struggling, but he kept the team afloat when Steph was out of there. You could see the potential, what he brings to the table as a young guard that is, on that star trajectory. And I truly believe Jordan Poole, like you said, Matt, I think he's going to kill it in another situation. It's just not. It ended up, being not here. But the playoffs last year gave us a lot of hope going in. So for me, I think my biggest miss was Jordan Poole. And it sucks because, if if the kid had even a slightly better series, we might still be talking about game one adjustments and stuff. But not to pin it all on him. Obviously there was a lot more stuff going on, but just with the way the season unfolded, we're starting off with the punch, and you're hearing a lot of just off the court stuff in terms of just playing time and all the stuff that we see that come out about the locker room and stuff so far. So it just kind of sucks just seeing that trajectory last season and not living up to the hype for this year, where you really needed it to happen to be a championship team. But again, you learn from these mistakes and come bounce back, man. They're right there.
Yeah, 100%. I think preseason too, I was kind of looking, unless there was a major shakeup, this was like Western Conference Finals ceiling. So I don't feel too bad about that on the whole, but I think I'm right there with you. The thing we were most wrong about was Poole, because he seemed ready to step into that number 2 scorer role, and we just didn't see it at all, especially in the playoffs. And that really, at the end, I think was kind of the downfall of the season, because when you plan on a guy being that and he's not, then it's really hard to make up for that elsewhere.
Yeah, no, Poole is just a big miss. Mine's kind of an expansion of that. I mean, I remember just thinking that this team was going to be crazy deep this year with the young guys. I genuinely thought everybody, and me from Wiseman all the way to Poole, to be honest, I thought we'd get minutes from them. I never thought Wiseman was going to be a star player. But I thought this year backup center minutes seemed reasonable to me going into the season. A big leap from Kuminga, which at certain points was not, ridiculous, seemed reasonable. Moody turning into like A+ version of Damian Lee last year felt like a good bet. And Poole being Poole, so I thought in my head that was 9 rotation guys that the Warriors can count on to stay fresh, to develop. Turns out, shot 0 for 4 there, man. We didn't see any of that really happen. It's a crazy big miss for the team. I think we also kind of talked about this. I don't remember where we all fell. I think I felt like the team could get past the punch with Poole after a bit. And that I remember we were all kind of like, if I recall correctly, like Draymond's got to go for a minute. And I don't think any of us feel that way anymore. I think we all still want Draymond around, just crazy turnarounds. But just thinking that this team could get past that, it's pretty obvious. Again, the vibes jokes are easy to make, right? But it's true. This team just didn't seem happy all year. Nobody seemed happy. Poole, you saw all these things in the playoffs where he was very obviously unhappy. You saw Mopi, Kuminga, Draymond. Draymond was incredible in the postseason. I want to be clear. Like he was as awesome as you could ask for. But the fire was a little different. Just all that in my head, but especially just the youth movement being. I didn't think Moses Moody was going to be Paul George. I thought Kuminga could be pretty damn good. Kuminga still has potential through the roof, to be clear. But I just thought these guys were going to give really meaningful stuff throughout the season. And big miss from all of them. You know what I mean? Turned out being Gary Payton coming back and some up and down stuff from DiVincenzo that kept this bench afloat at all. So crazy misses, guys.
We'll bounce back for next season. Well, I think we'll start with the offseason and see if some of these moves that we suggest get put into action. But before we get out of here, boys, obviously no predictions for the Warriors anytime soon. But I want to just go through get everybody's favorite moment from the season. There were ups and downs, but it was a lot of fun, man. There was a lot of great moments that we saw. The biggest thing that I took away from this team, though, like granted, obviously ups and downs were part of it, but they were hard to kill. Like there were so many times that they could have bowed out of the season, missed the plan, avoid the top 6 or miss the top 6, get bounced in the first round. Just to survive all this stuff, it really took a lot for them to die at the end. And at the end of the day, that's kind of plays into the running out of the gas too, where they just had so many times they had to come up big, and at the end they just came up a little short. But going through, what was your favorite moment of the season, Chuck? Just something off the top of your head.
Yeah, I had 2 I was having an impossible time picking from. No surprise that both involve Kevon Looney. The first was that Atlanta game. Not only Clay dropping a 50 bomb, I think he had 54 in that one. Kavan having the tip at the end of double
Such a good
overtime.
game.
That game was just crazy. That just felt one of the most electric, unreal basketball games they've had in a while. And the other one, man, just Kavan's insane run through the playoffs. From like the middle to the end of that Sacramento series, the dude was just on another level.
Do you
Had
know how
a
many boards he had in Game 6 against the Lakers?
in
18.
game 6.
Game 6, he had
18.
18 boards in 26 minutes.
Yeah,
It's
it was
statue,
just
man.
it was
That was a
craziness,
smooth
man.
statue.
Yeah, that 6 game stretch I'm talking about, he was playing 31 minutes a game and he got 19 boards and 5 assists. Like he's
I'm
just
fatigued, bro.
that was something else. It just felt like every ball was gonna find him. It felt like he was gonna find the right cutter, the right pass every time. Oh, it's just it was beautiful.
Chef's kiss.
What
Chef's
about
kiss.
you,
Shout out
Matt? What
Loon.
you got?
Shout out Loon.
I got two. Yeah, and then my first one isn't even like a game. It's just that stretch of Klay Thompson just shooting the lights out. I think it was late February to late March, maybe even into April. I think mostly while Steph was out too, man. The guy was putting up, and he led the league in threes this year. And he obviously did not come through in the playoffs at the very end. But I think there's something to be said from the fact that this guy literally carried this team to an above 500 record while Steph was out. As the most reliable offensive player in the team, coming off, an Achilles and ACL, leading the league in 3-pointers made, like I just said. Like that stretch was so cool, and it just felt like there's nothing more fun. Well, there's one thing more fun than a Klay heater, it's Steph heater, right? And that's in the eye of the beholder, I think. But Klay just being that hot for as long as he was just it was a really really cool experience. And this team is probably not in the first round or second round if he doesn't have that stretch, because that team falls well below 500 if that doesn't happen. Second is just it's not a tough one, but Steph's 50-piece game 7. I'm not ever gonna forget that, man. It turned out that was a life support game and not a run to the end type game, but it was just time. This guy just comes through. This guy is just like, he's one of the great competitors ever. And it's just badass. He's on our team. It's the coolest thing in the world that we get to watch Steph Curry. And it's root for Steph Curry. And that game was just the encapsulation of like, you know what, this thing's gonna die at some point because we all die, but I'm not letting it die today. And it was him, and it was Looney, and that just, if you believe in that guy long term, short term, he's gonna deliver more often than not. And that game, in my opinion, was like the perfect encapsulation of that.
Beautifully said. That was one of mine. So I don't have to build off that one. That was chef's kiss there, Matt. Shout out to Steph's 50-piece. But the other one that really stuck in my mind was the Christmas Day win against Memphis. They were talking a lot of junk, and it was Christmas Day. We weren't doing too hot. I think Steph didn't play that game either, but Jordan Poole had a great game. Draymond was chirping. That was Klay, like looking down at Dylan Brooks and just kind of talking all the junk. But Memphis was talking so much. We heard all the stuff, and we weren't having the best run up to Christmas at that point, and that really started. I think that started a winning streak. We were able to bounce back over 500 for a good amount after that stretch. But that was that Christmas Day game. I won't forget. Just watching and seeing the playoff playoff flair just kind of going, and it was kind of the first taste since the championship. But always fun beating Memphis and ending that dynasty over and over again. But it was a good.
Just want to point out that even in this Warriors horrible year, they still got farther than the Grizzlies, or as far as the Grizzlies ever have. Pardon me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Poetic justice, really. That team. Who knows about Ja? He might not be playing for the next year. Dylan Brooks going to Shanghai. Who knows what that team looks like? So we took out. We didn't even take them out this year, but another good year of seeing Memphis struggle. Before we get out of here, boys, as always, anything to shout out going into the offseason?
Yeah, I mean,
as always.
Oh, Chuck, go.
Oh, all right. Well, just a little brief. You catch me at Claytheist11 on Twitter. That's where I'm putting out all my stuff. TheSwishTheory.com is where I'll be putting all the basketball words. Easy as that.
Chuck pumped out something recently, guys, about how guarding Steph is like a 10-year reduction in your lifespan. So go check that out, please. Yeah, guys, follow Chuck. Go read Chuck. You'll get smarter every time. I don't know what's gonna be happening with GSW Fast Break. Gotta figure that out because season's over, guys, and that's where we recap games. But keep following everybody like Vignesh and Devneil and all those guys. Follow us at Game 6 Clay Pod. Give us everything, guys. We're gonna be pumping out. When Gautam said this was the last pod of the season, he just meant as far as our correlation with the Warriors go. We'll still be pumping out the content. We're gonna be doing the good work. Got some stuff in the works, I'm sure. We'll see what happens, but keep following, guys.
As always, man, thank you again, guys, for all everybody listening. It was a fun season. This is our third one here at Game 6 Clay on the podcast. Let us know, man. We love hearing from you guys. Appreciate all the support. And like Matt said, we're gonna keep pumping out the content. Game 6 Clay Pod is not done, even though we will hang up the Game 6 Clay in memoriam. But until the next episode, man, thank you guys again for following us and listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.